This is the last Sunday before Lent, which begins Wednesday. Today we glimpse the glory of Jesus before the events that lead to the cross. How many of you have read any of the Harry Potter series? Some of you? How about you guys in the balcony? I see a lot of head shaking. Oh, there's a few. Okay. In Harry Potter's series, there are a lot of course, interesting events, and my grandson is one who just could hardly wait for the next one to come out. So I had to read some of it to get an idea of what it was that got him so excited. But in one of the series we read, Transfiguration is some of the most complex and dangerous magic you will learn at Hogwarts. Anyone messing around in my class will leave and not come back. You have been warned. Professor McGonagall introduces Transfiguration to her students. She teaches beginners, intermediate, and advanced Transfiguration. Transfiguration is a subject that is taught in Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. It teaches the art of changing of the form and appearance of an object and vanishing of objects. The type of magic is commonly referred to as transfiguration. There are limits, however, to transfiguration, which are governed by Gamp's law of elemental transfiguration. Peter was there for the real thing. On 2 occasions, he heard the voice of God speak from heaven. One was at the baptism of Jesus, and the other was on this Mount of Transfiguration. And this is what Peter tells us. We did not follow cleverly invented stories when we told you about the power and coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, but we were eyewitnesses of his majesty. For he received honor and glory from God the Father when the Father spoke, "This is my Son, in whom I am well pleased." And then he goes on to say, we ourselves heard this voice that came from heaven when we were with him on the sacred mountain. Peter was there. He heard, he saw. Place is a mountaintop where Jesus went to pray. He often went aside alone or with his disciples to these places where he could pray with them or alone. And of course, living here in the mountains, you and I have been to mountaintops. Perhaps you live on one. What beauty, what serenity. Driving in this morning with the dusting of snow, it just takes your breath away with the beauty. The place in our lesson was chosen for its separateness from the world, where the participants could be alone with Jesus without the distractions that were in the valley. We do not know which mountain it was, but it is reminiscent of another mountain, Mount Sinai, where we read in Exodus where Moses, when he came down with the tablets of stone containing the law, was so brilliant in his face that it frightened the Israelites. So after giving the law, he took to putting a veil over his face so that they would be able to be in his presence. And that veil he would take off when he went into the tent of meeting to be before God and be able to minister there before God without the veil. He just wasn't aware when he came down that his face was radiant. But like Moses, Jesus was transformed. His face shone like the sun, and his clothing was as white as light. The participants in this event were 4 at first: Jesus, Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. the three disciples that Jesus had closest to him. These were three who would be leaders in the world as well. We find Peter becoming a leader in the church in Rome. We find James becoming a leader of the church in Jerusalem. And John, who wrote the gospel that I think we turn to most often, and that is the Gospel of John, which is the easiest to read and understand, as well as writing the most complicated book that we find in the Bible, at least for me, that is the book of Revelation. These are the ones that Jesus chose. But as we shall see, there are two more who show up. There's Moses and Elijah. These were the witnesses in the Old Testament. And some believe that Moses and Elijah would be the witnesses who will come in the book of Revelation. Moses, who was the receiver of the law, and Elijah, who did battle with the prophets of false gods.